Hey everyone. This week's readings definitely showed me that this is my weakest area by far, and one that I really want to work on as far as personal and professional growth in as a director and as an educator as well. It's not that I can't do it. It's it's definitely an area that I feel like is still I have so much to learn from, especially with lighting. I really want to learn more about the lighting board and how to program lights myself. My fabulous tech director and stage crew take care of that, but I would love to mess around with them on my own and experiment with different types of lighting and all of that. So reading these 3 chapters this week really brought home that this is an area that I really want to fine tune as a director. As far as sound, that first chapter on sound, I love incorporating sound. However, it always becomes a little bit of a nightmare since we rehearse on a middle school stage and perform on the high school stage. We really can't run those sound cues in full until Tech Week, which is a problem. So I've made it a point for this year coming up that I will go cue to cue with the sound tech head crew person to go through those sound cues. Even though there are no actors up there, we can just go through them just so it's seamless. It will always undoubtedly happen that a doorbell will ring at the wrong time, or the phone won't ring, or a dog barks out of the blue, or whatever. So we know that, and at this point I'm like, oh, it's live theater, anything can happen, and I kind of just brush it off. Always our hope is that it's going to be seamless and that everything's going to work out the way that we want to, but I think we know as directors that that's not always what happens, especially in live theater. So for sound, it's definitely something that I think planning ahead of time will help for me. I loved what they said about creating atmospheric type music in the background. The play that I'm doing coming up in the fall, Trap, has music that's recommended by the author, by the playwright, and you can purchase it, and I think it's well worth the investment. It's really not expensive at all in order to create that mysterious kind of spooky atmosphere that I want for Trap. I want the audience to be hanging on the edge of their seats. So I really appreciated that. And as far as live music, we actually only have live musicians during our musical production because we work with middle schoolers and they get lost, they forget lines, they forget whole sections of songs. Sometimes they backtrack and make them up. So having those live musicians to be able to follow them and go with them is super important. We use rehearsed tracks, we use rehearsed scores during rehearsals, and my music director will sometimes play with them, but those live musicians add so much, and to me, they're worth the expense. So I really appreciated that chapter on sound. As far as visual aesthetics, I loved what the author said about it doesn't matter what kind of theater you're working with. If the director is creative enough and has a really good creative team is really pushing the limits, they can put any play or production on in that space. So I was really taken with that and pleased that the authors wrote that, because I don't want to be held back as a director. We have our regular proscenium theater, and it's a standard rectangle and all of that. But if I were to ever have a new theater, which I might, it could look very different. So I appreciated that. We always use a raked stage to elevate all of our actors. We often have a cast of 80 to 100 students on stage. So it's really important in those big numbers that they are elevated so that everybody can see them. It always happens that when we talk about space on stage and balanced versus imbalanced, I appreciated that whole section on that as well. As much as I try as a director to create a balanced stage, my actors will always clump in one area. So they'll choose, every year it's different. Some years it's stage left, everybody's stage left. Some years everybody's stage right. Sometimes they're upstage, sometimes they're downstage. I don't know. It's very haphazard, but they do it. They don't even realize that they're doing it, but they just all kind of gravitate together into a clump. And it's not a useful clump. It's a very terrible clump that takes away from the kind of whole purpose of the play. So I have started taking pictures of them and posting it on the Google Classroom, not to shame them, but just to say, hey, this is what this looks like. I want you to tell me what you see when you see this. And they will always say, oh, we're all standing on one side of the stage. It looks like we're all kind of leaning over to one side. So they're getting it now. And I'm hoping that by giving some of that modeling, video modeling feedback, they start to really understand that all standing together in one place is not going to be helpful for the aesthetic of the overall production. So I really appreciated that aspect as well. And I definitely want to work more with lights to create atmosphere, especially for trap. I'm thinking that we use some kind of fog machine as well so that we create that really spooky background. And how can I, as a director, where it's very documentary interview style, the actors can get a little tired of it. I want the audience to be constantly engaged. So how can I bring them in visually into this play to really have them hanging on the edge of their seat? So it really was good food for thought for me, all 3 of these chapters, to plan my next 2 productions. And I definitely bookmarked them to come back to. I hope everybody has a great weekend. See you all next week.